I have a confession. There were nights after I retired at 39 when I couldn't sleep because I was so terrified I made the biggest mistake in my life. I'd lie awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering if financial independence was worth becoming socially invisible. See, 3 months after leaving my job, every single work connection had vanished overnight. My friends were too busy with their careers to hang out during the day, and I went from being surrounded by people 50 hours a week to sitting alone in my house, questioning if I've traded my happiness for a number in my bank account. I'm Jason. I retired early at 39, but this video isn't about my success. It's about one of FIRE's dark secrets. By the end of this video, you'll understand why 41% of retirees experience severe identity disruption, why early retirees report losing 60 to 80% of their social connections within 2 years, and 3 critical strategies that you should implement now, before you hit your FIRE number, to protect your mental health and relationships from the hidden psychological cost that can make you regret ever pursuing financial independence. Even if you're years away from retirement, you need to hear this. Let me tell you about David, a software engineer who achieved FIRE at 42. He had saved aggressively for 15 years, hit his $800,000 target, and walked away from his 6-figure job. He expected to feel liberated. Instead, he felt lost. For 20 years, David introduced himself as, "I'm a senior software engineer at Company X." His identity, his sense of worth, his daily purpose, everything was tied to that title. When someone asked, "What do you do?" at parties, he didn't know how to answer anymore. Research shows that 41% of retirees experience moderate to severe identity disruption within their first year. But for early retirees, it's worse. You're not just losing your job, you're losing the thing that made you feel valuable while everyone around you still has theirs. I remember David telling me, "I went from being someone who solved complex problems and led teams to being someone whose biggest decision was what to watch on Netflix. I felt worthless." If you're realizing that FIRE might cost you more than just money, you need to subscribe right now. I share the unfiltered truth about early retirement that could save your relationships and your sanity. Here's what no FIRE influencer tells you. Early retirement doesn't just change your relationship with work, it destroys your social connections. And it makes sense. Think about it. Where do most adults make friends? At work? Who do you grab lunch with? Co-workers? Who do you complain to about your boss? Work friends? When you retire early, all that disappears overnight. But here's the brutal part. Your friends who are still working, they don't want to hear about your retirement problems. One study found that 70% of early retirees report feeling avoided by former colleagues and friends. Why? Well, it's simple. They're jealousy, resentment. They're stuck in traffic at 7 a.m. while you're sleeping in. They're dealing with difficult clients while you're planning your 3rd vacation this year. One FIRee on Reddit wrote, "My best friend of 35 years won't talk to me anymore. He said I was too young to be sitting around, and that it made him feel like a failure. I lost my friendship the day I gained my freedom." I want this channel to be a safe space for all of us to finally say what we're afraid to tell anyone else. So, are you lying awake at night, terrified that pursuing FIRE will cost you your friendships? Are you already feeling isolated because your aggressive savings make you different from everyone around you? If so, there's no shame here. The comment section is where you can admit what you're really going through. Whether you're scared of becoming a social outcast, worried about losing your work identity, or feeling guilty for wanting to escape while everyone else is still trapped. Share it below. See, we're all carrying these fears in silence, and that's what's making them worse. There's no judgment here, just real people like us dealing with the hidden cost of financial independence that nobody else wants to talk about. Now, what I'm about to reveal about family relationships gets even more painful. And I have to tell you something that I've never publicly shared before. 6 months after I retired, my own sister stopped inviting me to family gatherings. She later admitted that she felt like a failure every time she saw me. Here's a woman I love who's successful by any measure, and my early retirement made her question her entire life. And that guilt still keeps me up some nights, wondering if my freedom came at the cost of family relationships. The people closest to you might resent your FIRE success the most. I've seen marriages implode because one spouse achieved FIRE while the other had to keep working. The working spouse comes home exhausted from their 9 to 5, while their partner had 8 hours of freedom. Resentment builds. Arguments start. Comments like, "What did you even do today?" Or, "You don't even understand my stress anymore. I'm tired of being the only one with a real job." Another man on Reddit wrote, "My wife stopped talking to me 3 months after I retired. She'd come home and stare at me with disgust while I was reading a book. She felt like I'd abandoned her in the rat race while I got to live free. We're getting divorced." The psychological research is clear. When one partner retires significantly earlier than the other, relationship satisfaction plummets by 40% within the first year. In just a few minutes, I'm going to share the 3-step strategy that successful early retirees use to avoid social isolation and protect their relationships. But first, you need to understand why the FIRE community's solution to this problem is making it worse, and the shocking statistics and how many people return to work. Here's what the FIRE community doesn't want you to know. Nearly 40% of retirees reverse their retirement decision. For the youngest retirees, it's as high as 53%. But here's the most telling statistic. 82% of those who return to work expected to work during retirement before they even retired. They weren't caught off guard by financial emergencies or retirement misery. They were following the original plan all along. This reveals that for most people, the decision to return to work isn't about desperation. It's about realizing that complete retirement isn't what they actually wanted. One study found that retired people are 40% more likely to experience depression, especially in the first year. For many, work provided more than just money. It provided purpose, social connection, and identity. Even Financial Samurai, one of the pioneers of the financial movement, publicly admitted that he failed at early retirement, and he went back to work. He wrote, "After 8 years of early retirement, I realized I needed more purpose and challenge in my life." When early retirees start feeling isolated, the FIRE community tells them, "Just hang out with other FIRE people. Join the forums." This is terrible advice. You're creating basically an exclusive club of people who've escaped normal society. You become even more disconnected from regular people, more out of touch with how the world actually works. I watched FIRE retirees become insufferable because they only talk to other FIRE people. They lose the ability to relate to anyone who hasn't achieved financial independence. They become financial snobs without even realizing it. The truth is, you can't replace a lifetime of work friendships and social connections with internet forums and meet up with strangers who happen to share your same savings rate. See, real relationships are built on shared experiences, mutual support, and genuine care, not just a common investment strategy. Before I share the 3-step plan that works, I want to highlight something amazing from this community. Recently, a viewer had this to say. "After hearing these stories, I reached out to an old friend from work who I'd lost touch with after retiring. It was awkward at first, but it felt like reclaiming part of myself that I thought was gone." Stories like this fill the comments. People admitting struggles, reconnecting, or just feeling less alone because others spoke up first. See, each shared experience shows that breaking silence matters, and none of us are really alone in how we feel. If you're struggling, your story might help someone begin to rebuild their social life too. So again, don't be afraid to share your thoughts in the comments below. So, how do we combat this problem? Well, step 1 is to build an identity beyond work now. Don't wait until you retire to figure out who you are. Start developing interests, hobbies, and skills that have nothing to do with your job. Volunteer regularly, join clubs, take classes. Create an identity that doesn't depend on your paycheck. The goal is to become someone who happens to work, not someone whose entire worth comes from working. Step 2 is to have a gradual transition from work and don't just stop cold turkey. Instead of going from full-time work to complete retirement overnight, consider a gradual transition. Part-time work, consulting, or a phased retirement gives you time to adjust socially and psychologically. This way, your friends and family can adapt to your changing situation without feeling abandoned or resentful. You maintain some work connections while you're building your retired life. Step 3 is to invest in relationships before you need them. The time to strengthen your friendships is before you retire, not after. And be honest with your close friends about your FIRE plans. Help them understand that early retirement isn't about being lazy, It's about having the freedom to pursue meaningful relationship and activities. You invest time and energy in relationships that aren't based on work. Focus on friends who knew you before your career defined you. Look, you can have all the money in the world, but if you're lonely, isolated, and have lost your sense of identity, you haven't achieved financial independence. You've bought yourself a luxurious prison. The FIRE movement tends to focus obsessively on the money part, but it ignores the human part. And your savings rate matters, but your happiness depends on relationships, purpose, and connection. I mean, even now, part of me still wonders if I did the right thing by retiring so young. Some days I feel incredibly grateful for the freedom, and other days I feel completely disconnected from the world that everyone else lives in. But I do know that talking openly about these fears is the first step to not letting them consume me. The isolation gets worse when we pretend it doesn't exist. So don't let the pursuit of financial freedom cost you everything that makes life worth living. The dark secret of FIRE is that money solves money problems, but it doesn't solve human problems. Early retirement can be incredible, don't get me wrong, but only if you plan for the psychological and social challenges as carefully as you plan for the financial ones. So thank you guys for your honesty and courage in the comments. Believe me, I read every word, and your stories are shaping what we cover next. If this video opened your eyes to the risks that you hadn't considered, subscribe for more honest conversations about the realities of early retirement and financial independence. Remember, you're never alone in this. Our community is here to support you, and true wealth includes relationships, purpose, and mental health. Don't sacrifice those for a number on a spreadsheet.